Hey guys, welcome to Scalar's live session. So in this particular session, we're gonna start with AWS architecture. Let's wait for a couple minutes until few viewers have joined, and then I will basically share my screen and I'll explain you guys about the architecture which we'll be learning today. And once we understand how the architecture is going to be, and then I'll open the console and launch all the resources necessary, and we'll create that architecture. So if you already have an AWS account, then just you can open it side by side, and we can you can basically do what I'm doing, and you can get an idea of how to create an architecture by yourself, right? Hey Fatma, okay. So just give me 1 second, guys. All right. I'll share my screen in a couple seconds. Let me just check uh, the viewers. All right. Okay, guys. So now let's start with the session. I don't want to take further of your time, even though there are a few viewers who joined right now. I'm just going to start with it. Again, it's a Friday. The session will be available once I complete the live as well, so you don't have to worry about it. So now I want to share my screen. Right, I'm sharing my screen for now. Okay. So the screen is shared. I hope you guys can see it. Uh, and also I'll change my view. Okay, yeah, so also which is better, this or this? I think this would be better because you guys can see more things. All right, so I'm just gonna go with this. Done. Okay, so I hope you guys can see this as well now. Okay, so this is the architecture which we'll be trying to create today. Okay, so first of all, there is a VPC. So the VPC is the first thing we'll be creating. The VPC is basically a logical network. It's called virtual private cloud, and it's a logical network which you can create. Okay, so this particular logical network can have various resources within it, because you cannot create a resource without a network. So if you launch an EC2 instance, it should be within a network. It cannot launch an EC2 instance without it being inside a network, because the EC2 instance will be given an IP address, a private IP address. So all of that requires the VPC, and it also requires the subnet. Okay, so yeah, so that's what we'll be doing today. So then there's the VPC, and within the VPC, we'll be creating two subnets, a private subnet and a public subnet. Okay, so a private subnet is basically, it won't have internet access. It will just have uh, access within the VPC, but a public subnet will have access to the internet. So how does it have access? We'll be using an internet gateway which will allow access for the public subnet. Okay, so the public subnet, so the instances, EC2 instances within the public subnet can directly connect to the internet, and also can basically get back all the info from the internet. That basically means like, how to say that? So okay, I think I'm not sharing my screen, is there's one problem here. I'm very sorry about that. Just give me 1 second, guys. Share my screen. Okay. Okay, I'll just try to explain it again because I don't think I showed it. Just give me 1 second. Yes, that was a mistake from my side. I was not showing the. Yep. Really sorry, guys. I'll just explain the architecture once again before we start creating the architecture, right? So first, we'll be having a VPC, which is a private cloud, virtual private cloud provided by AWS. So it's basically a logical unit. So in AWS, you can have any number of VPCs. So you can create VPCs, and there can be another customer, even they can have a VPC. So what is the purpose of it? It will isolate the resources within that VPC from other VPCs. So let's say there are four VPCs, and one particular VPC, let's say it has two, three EC2 instances. So these EC2 instances will be isolated from the other virtual private clouds. So you can create connections and make them communicate with each other. This instance within VPC to another VPC, it doesn't matter. You can create connections, but the purpose of creating virtual private cloud is create a sub network within AWS. So then within the VPC, you can create something called subnets. So subnets are basically uh, sub networks. It is basically used to create a smaller network within the VPC with a bunch of IP addresses. So a range of IP addresses. So if there are two subnets here, so if I launch an instance within the subnet, so the instance will have an IP address within the range provided over here. Okay, same thing goes here. And then there are two types of subnets in AWS and in VPCs. So there's a public subnet and there is a private subnet. A public subnet is, again, from the name itself, it's public. The public subnet, the resources within the public subnet can communicate with anything. They can communicate with the internet. And also the internet, you can basically try to communicate with the resources within the public subnet from the internet. So it's a two-way communication. So how does it work? So they use something called an internet gateway. So using an internet gateway, you will be able to do that. And then coming to private subnets. Okay. So now private subnets, within the private subnet, the resources within the private subnet cannot directly access the internet. So there is one way they can access internet is by using the public subnet. So in the public subnet, you will have to launch something called the NAT gateway, network address translation. So what it does is it will translate the private IP address into a public IP address, which will then allow it to communicate with the internet. Okay, so that's how it works, network address translation. So that's called a NAT gateway. So using a NAT gateway, the private instances can connect with the internet, but again, within the VPC, a private instance could directly communicate with the instance in the other subnet. So within the VPC, all resources can communicate with each other without internet. But if a private subnet wants to download something from the internet, in that case, it would need a NAT gateway. Without a NAT gateway, we cannot. It would not work. Okay. So first, let me tell you what are the things which we'll be creating by order. So first, we'll be launching something called the VPC. We'll be creating the VPC. Once we create the VPC, then I'll be creating two subnets, the public subnet and the private subnet. Okay, these two will be created. So to make it a public subnet, the first thing you'll have to do is a route table. There is something called a route table. A route table is what will allow the subnet to connect to the internet. So again, guys, there is a lot of concepts here. It's so let's say if I'm saying something, I'll give you a brief about it, but if you want to learn more about it, just go to the documentation and check it. Again, there is also a complete tutorial on VPC in our Scalar channel. You can just go ahead and search for VPC tutorial, and I've explained all of the things over there. Okay, so you can learn over there. So now I'm not going to get into those things. I just want to keep it within the topic which we are covering for today. So now that internet gateway will be attached to the VPC. So if it is if it is attached to it, then in that case, the public subnet will be able to connect to the internet. And once we've done that with the internet gateway, so that will become a public subnet. Next, we have a private subnet, right? So we want the private subnet also to have internet access. But if you use a NAT gateway, that basically means you will only have access to the internet. The internet cannot access the resources within the private subnet. So you can see, right, these are the private IP addresses. These are the public IP addresses. So If the private instance, if the private subnet can access the internet through the NAT gateway, but so there is only two-way access if you have an internet gateway. If it's a NAT gateway, in that case, it's just one-way access. The resources within the VPC can access the internet, not the other way around. So we'll be creating a NAT gateway. Okay, so these are the things we'll be creating. And once that is done, I'll be launching an EC2 instance within the public subnet and the private subnet to show you the difference between uh, obviously the public and the private subnet. So these are the things which we'll be doing, guys. So let me again, I just was explaining it. Now I'll just tell you what are the things we'll be launching so that you can note it down or you can also try to do it. Create the VPC, create the public and private subnets. So they are basically creating two subnets. So once we created two subnets, we will be making one the public subnet by attaching the internet gateway. Okay, and then we'll be creating a private subnet. So let it be the private subnet. We won't be doing any change. And then we'll be launching two instances within the public and the private subnet. And I'll show you the difference between the public and the private subnet. Once that is done, I want to provide internet access to the private subnet. So to provide internet access to the private subnet, what I'll have to do, I'll have to create an NAT gateway and attach it to the public subnet. So the private resources can translate their private IP into a public IP to connect to the internet. So that's the last thing. I'll be creating a NAT gateway and providing access to the private resources. That will be the last part of this particular session. So this is the architecture we're going to create. So I hope you guys have been following me till now, and I hope it's understandable, right? Hey Priyanshu, hey Devijana, hey Karthik, welcome to this session. So I hope you guys will understand something from this session. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Okay. So now let's start with the actual architecture, right? I'll just keep this here anyway, so that you guys could see it whenever I want to compare the architecture. So the first thing you'll have to do, go to VPC. Hey Vijay, hope you guys are doing good. Stay home. Okay, now I'm going to VPC. So you can see there is another VPC over here. There are actually two VPCs created. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this VPC. Okay, so and one more thing, do not delete the default VPC. Okay, because if you delete it, then it's pretty hard to create. It's not that hard to create, but do not delete the default VPC. Okay, the default VPC and the default VPC will have certain default subnets. Do not delete whatever is written as default. It is provided to you by AWS. Do not delete them. Okay. So now let's start with the first step. So I'm just noting it down here in my notes so that it will be better for me to track. So first thing I'm doing is going to create a VPC. Okay. So click on create VPC. So the first thing, provide it a tag. That's a name. So it's an option. It's optional, but still it's better to provide it. Okay, I'm going to name it as AWS Architecture Tutorial. Okay, and then you can choose from IPv4, CIDR, manual input, or IPAM allocated IPv4 CIDR block. So this will automatically provide a pool, but I'm not going to use that. Let's go with the traditional way of providing a CIDR block. So again, CIDR block, if you want to learn more about it, please learn it separately, because there is again an IP addresses video from in our channel, which is done by Lakshay. This is a channelist in our institution. So basically, you can just check it out. There he has explained how basically more about IP addresses and CIDR blocks, so you can understand it even better if you want to learn about IPs. So I'm not going to go further into it. Again, if you want to learn a little more about IP addresses, then just check out the VPC tutorial, which is already available in our channel. Yep. So here you can provide an IP address. So it could be, let's say it should be an IP address range, which will allow a lot of addresses. Okay. So if I provide 10.0.0.0/24, 24 is the number of bits. So in this IP address, there are totally 32 bits. So there are 10 bits over here, and then, sorry, there are 8 bits over here, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 bits. So every dot within that, there are 8 bits. Okay, so there are 32 bits in total. So now if I provide 24 here, what it basically means is the first 24 bits will be what it will be. The first 24 bits cannot be changed. Okay, it will be constant. The last 8 bits can be changed. That's what this particular cider block means. If I provide it as 10.0.0.0 slash 16, so this basically means the first 16 bits, right? The first 16 bits cannot be changed. They will remain the same. It will be always be 10.0, but the last two, that is the last 16 bits, can be changed. So I'm going to keep my IPv4 cider as 10.0.0.0 slash 16. So this is going to be my IP address, sorry, my IP address range. Okay. So I'm not going to create a IPv6 cider block. I don't need one right now. Okay. So this is basically all the information you need to create a VPC. And once you've provided it, click on create VPC, and the VPC is created. And that's basically it. It's pretty simple. So let me see if there are any questions, and I'll just answer them before moving on. Okay, so there's a question, what's the difference between a public and a private subnet? So that's what I was explaining before. I'll just tell it again, Priya. So basically, a public subnet has internet access both ways. That is, the resources within the public subnet can contact or communicate with the internet, and the internet also can communicate back. That basically means I can communicate with the resource within the VPC using the internet, and the other way around. But it won't work the same way with private subnet, because private subnets are private from the name. There is no internet access. So that's basically private subnet. Do we really need subnets? Yes, we need subnets. We cannot just have one huge network and throw all the resources inside of it, because if you create subnets, it'll have a smaller IP address range, and according to the smaller IP address range, you can put in all the necessary resources within it. Because if you just have one, because again, as I told you, if you just want to give certain resources internet access, then you cannot put them all in a public subnet, right? The other, because all the resources will have internet access, then you just want to provide internet access to certain resources. So in that case, you would need a public and a private subnet. um, Thank you, Vijay. Good evening. Interesting session. Good agenda. Yeah, so we'd also be making more upcoming AWS sessions and Azure sessions, so make sure you subscribe and stay with us. uh, there is one more question from Exon. Can you please explain what is EC2 used for? Okay, so again, there's already a tutorial in our channel, Scalers channel. You can just go ahead and check it over there. But I'll just give you a brief. EC2 basically means Elastic Compute Cloud. That basically again means compute cloud. You can create a compute engine over the cloud. So you can create a server over the cloud, and that is provided by AWS. And why it is named as Elastic? That basically means you can increase or decrease the number of servers. You can manipulate the instance type. You can create it anytime you want. You can delete it anytime you want. And the name Elastic basically comes from, you can stretch it and also bring it back. So you can scale up or down. That basically means you can increase the number of servers if necessary and decrease the number of servers if not required. And then there's a question from Pratyush. Can you please help me? What is VPC? Is it a local network? Is it like a no local network? Okay, so VPC, yes, it's pretty much like a local network, but in this case, it's more logical. A local network is also logical, but it's created within bounds, and only the resources within the local network can communicate with each other. But when you talk about VPC, it's over the cloud, and it's also a network, but it is more logically created network to isolate other resources from the resources within the VPC. I hope that answered your question, Pratyush. And there's one more question from Karthik. Can't we directly launch the resources in VPC? Uh, like, so yes, you can do that, but only if there are subnets available. If there are no subnets, you cannot directly launch things within the VPC. Yes, so that's. I hope that again makes sense. So I hope I have answered a few questions. So let me start with the session once again, and then after some time I'll check if there are more questions and then answer them. Okay, I'll just keep it over here. Okay, done. So guys, first thing we've created the VPC. Now we're going to create two subnets. Okay. Okay. Uh, Coming back. So now we are going to create two subnets within this particular VPC. So over here, you can see there are other options where you can edit the CIDR, you can edit the DNS host names. There are so many other options which you can use here. You can delete the VPC. You can just look at all the things which you can do with the VPC. Next, going to subnets. Okay. So now you can see these are all the subnets of the default VPC. It's written clearly, do not delete the default VPC subnets. Once again, just to tell you guys. Now let's create two subnets which we require for our VPC. Clicking on it, selecting the VPC, which is AWS Architecture Tutorial. Selected it. First one, I'm just going to name it as public subnet arc. Availability zone, you can select any availability zone. I'm going to go with US East 1A for this particular public subnet. And here, one more thing you will have to note down is the IP address, right, within the subnet. So the VPC, we provided a range of 10.0.0.0/60. So if I provide the same over here, sorry, first let me delete this. Yeah, so I'm providing the same CIDR block here. Let me. So the thing is, now this particular subnet completely overlaps. Sorry. Now this particular subnet which I created completely overlaps the entire VPC. So if I do that, I cannot create other subnets, right? Why is it not showing yet? Okay, let me go back and create again. Okay, so now again, tutorial public subnet arc. I'm going to give it 10.0.1 slash 10.0 slash 24. So why I'm providing 24 is that the first, give me one second, guys. The first 24 bits cannot be changed. Okay, so that's why I'm providing 24, and this does not overlap with my complete VPC's IP address. So this is what I'm providing. Next, I want to create a private subnet. So the thing is, right now there is no so there is no difference between the public and the private subnet. So first we can just create subnets, and then we can make them into public or private according to the things we attach to them. If I attach the internet gateway to the public subnet, this subnet, it becomes a public subnet. If I attach the internet subnet to the private subnet which I'm creating, it will also become a public subnet because it's an internet gateway. It provides internet access. Private subnets should not have internet access, direct internet access. Okay. So here I'm going to choose it as US East 1B, and again here I'm going to provide it as 24. So now in this case I'm providing one here, right? One here and two here. That basically means these two subnets IP addresses won't overlap, and that won't be a problem for me. Okay. So if I provide it as one, so these two will overlap, and that would be a problem for me because two subnets cannot have the same type of IP addresses. Okay. So that's what you'll have to make sure. So now create the two subnets. Done. Again, you're just creating two subnets. They are not. So this is the problem. I created a subnet with this, right? I think it's not allowing me to create it. So now let's go back and delete it. It's over here. Yeah. So this is basically the problem. I created a subnet with the complete, I would say the complete range. So now this particular subnet has 65,531 available IP addresses. So yeah, so that's basically the problem. Let me delete this first. Okay, yeah, so these are the default subnets. Let it be. So let me create it. Sorry for the small issue. On pubs arc 10.0.0/24 adds new subnet, private subnet arc 1b 10.0.2/0/24. Done. Create new subnets. So now I've created two subnets, guys. You can see both the subnets are available. And now let's see the IP address range. So now both of the IP addresses have an IP address range of 251, right? So it actually should be 256. Okay, so it actually should be that, but the problem here is that 5 IP addresses will always be reserved with AWS, so that won't be given. So the rest of the IP addresses are available. If I launch a resource within this particular IP, so sorry, within this particular subnet, it will have an IP address within this, and you can only launch 251 resources within this particular subnet. Same thing goes with this subnet, because only you have 251 available IP address slots. Okay. Um, all right. So we've created two subnets, guys. So right now there is no distinct. So it's not distinguished, right? Okay. For public and a private subnet. Okay. Public subnet, private subnet. We have created two subnets. The next thing, let us make the public subnet an actual public subnet. So for that, what we'll have to do, we'll have to create an internet gateway and attach it to the VPC. Okay. So that's what we are going to do right now. And let me see if there are any more questions. Yeah, currently there are no questions, so I'm just gonna continue. Okay, public subnet. Let's make it a public subnet. First, let's make the public subnet, and then let's talk about. Then let's talk about the private subnet. Okay, just give me one second, guys. Yeah. So now, as I was talking about, we are going to make the public subnet an actual public subnet. Right now, there is nothing attached to it, so it doesn't have any particular problem. So there is this route table, right? So this route table would have got created with the VPC. So that's the route table which we are going to attach our internet gateway to. So you can see here, right? This particular route table. If I click on this, so you can see the VPC. This particular route table is connected to is the AWS Architecture tutorial VPC. So if I connect an internet gateway to this, that will basically mean this particular what is this? This particular subnet, right? This particular subnet will become a public subnet. But again, this subnet also, the private subnet also has this route table connected to it. So that will be a problem, right? Because even the private subnet will become a public subnet. So now let me go to route table. We can actually change the route table if we want to, so that doesn't that won't be a problem here. Okay, so now route tables, we'll talk about them later once we create the internet gateway. So it's pretty simple to create the internet gateway. So this is a default VPC one. Click on create internet gateway, provide the name. I'm going to provide it as architecture internet gateway and create it. So internet gateway is created. Done. Next, we'll have to attach it to a route table. So now one thing I want to say before we move on with attaching it to the route table is do not attach it to the route table which is the main route table, because whatever basically whatever route you create here should be common for both of them. Or you can basically see here, there is an add gateway, there is an option for internet gateway, and you can add the route here. But one major problem would be that when you add an internet gateway, so this particular route table is connected to two subnets, right? So these two subnets, these are subnets without explicit associations. We can make them associated to it. So if you associate both of them, okay, but then what basically will happen is, so if you attach an internet gateway, both of those subnets will have internet access, and both of them will become public subnets. So once you basically attach the route to the internet gateway to this particular route table, you will have to make sure only the public subnet is associated with the route table, with this particular route table. Okay. Then for NAT gateway, we'll create another one. So let's not concentrate about that. Okay. So internet gateway is created. We'll have to edit the routes. Click on add route, and over here, and I'm going to click on internet gateway, searching for targets. No, nothing found. Okay. Let me go back. I'll attach it first of all. Clicking here, actions attached to VPC, AWS Architecture tutorial attached to VPC. Done. Now let's go back to route table. Clicking on the route, routes, edit routes, add route, clicking on target, internet gateway, architecture internet gateway, select it, done. So then you can just provide anything you want over here. Doesn't matter. And then you can click on save changes. So valid side block, I'm just going to provide it as let me do this, is equal to or more specific than one of this VPC side blocks. This route can only an interface or an instance. Okay, let me make it this. Done. So now the internet gateway is attached. So the destination could be any destination, right? The target is the internet gateway. So now first thing you'll have to do is attach only the public subnet. Do not attach the private subnet because we do not want to provide internet access to the public private subnet. Okay. So now we've successfully created a public subnet. So private subnet is still a private subnet. Nothing. So there is no internet access to it. So okay. So we've actually created the VPC, guys. We've created the public subnet. We've created the private subnet. We made the public subnet into a public subnet by attaching the internet gateway to the route table and associating the public subnet to it. Okay, I hope it makes sense because the public subnet needs internet access. So only way to get internet access is via internet gateway, and only way the internet gateway can provide access to the public subnet is by attaching it to the VPC. So we attached it to the VPC and associated the public subnet to the route table, and that's it. So now we've created a private and a public subnet. So to make sure they are public and private subnets, we'll have to launch instances within them and check if they are actually private or public, right? So now let me open EC2 in another tab. Okay, let's launch two instances. One instance I want to launch within the public subnet. One instance I'm going to launch within the private subnet. And then let's see what are the differences between them. So launch instances. So again, guys, I'm not going to explain the instance launching steps because again, if you want to learn about it, you can just go ahead to the EC2 tutorial or the complete AWS tutorial, which is on our channel, and you can learn everything over there. So I'm just going to stick to the schedule here. This is done. I'm just going to like fast forward. And only thing I wanted to show you guys is selecting the VPC and submit. So here I'm going to change the subnet to the, sorry, it's change the VPC to the VPC which I created just now, AWS Architecture tutorial. And you can select public or private. So the first instance, let it be the private instance. Next, storage, let it be 8 GB. Tags, name, private instance. Now let me just say private arc. SSH is more than enough. You don't need anything else. Review and launch. So this keeper, I already have this. So I'm just going to use the same keeper. Launch instances. So we've launched the private instance, guys. Now let's go back and launch the public instance. Launch instance. Again, I'm going to launch an Ubuntu instance. Keeping everything the same. Only thing will change in this instance would be the subnet, which is the public subnet. Okay, selected it. Next, add storage. Same storage type. I don't want to change anything. And here in tag, I'm just going to name it as public arc. Security group, let it be SSH only. I don't need anything else. I'll also provide one more rule to show you guys the difference. So I'm going to add HTTP. I'm going to use the same keeper which I already have and launch instances. Okay, so now I've launched two instances, guys. One is the private instance and one is the public instance. So the public instance will have a public IP and a private IP, and the private instance will have only a private IP. I think I've made a mistake here while launching this. Let me check. Yeah, so when I launched the public instance, I made one mistake. I don't want, I'm going to terminate it. I'm going to launch it again. I'm going to show you what mistake I made. Select this and everything is the same. I'm just going to forward through previous. So one thing which I wanted to show is, so when I'm changing this, right, to AWS architecture tutorial and making it public subnet. So here you can see auto assign public IP is disabled. So you will have to enable it so that a public IP address is automatically assigned to the public instance. So make sure to do this. Do not do the same mistake which I did. I just can see it. That's why I just went through. So let it be. So now next, change network setting which may clear your security group configuration. Yes. Next, name public arc, configure security group, HTTP, review and launch, same key pair, and launch instances. Okay, so now we've launched two instances. One is the private instance and the other is a public instance. So now the difference you can see, right? The private instance does not have a public IP address. And the public instance does have a public IP address. Okay, so this is the major difference which you see first, but there is one more difference. So let me click on this. Let me connect to the private instance. So you can connect it in two ways. You can connect it with an SSH client using terminal, or you can connect it to EC2 Instance Connect. I'm just going to connect it with, so I'll just show you how to connect it with EC2. So one thing I'm going to show here is the instance does not have a public IP and you cannot connect to it, right? So even if I do this in my terminal, it won't connect to the instance because it's a private instance. Without a public IP address, you cannot directly connect to it. The only way I can connect to this particular instance, right? The private instance which I just created. So the only way I can connect to the private instance is via the public instance which I created. Okay. So now let the public instance initialize. I hope it's running right now. It'll take a couple seconds. So once the public instance is running, I'm going to connect to it first and show you if the internet is working or not. So the internet will work only if it's connected to the internet gateway, and we've already connected to the internet gateway, so it should work. Okay, so now let's try connecting to it. Click on connect. So again, as I told you, there are two ways to connect. One is EC2. So there are many ways, but essentially the most popular ways is EC2 instance connect. I wouldn't suggest this, but I'm just showing you how to connect it. And then SSH client is the most preferred way. I'm going to connect it using SSH client in a couple seconds, but I just wanted to show you guys you can connect this way as well. And you can see this, right? Okay, so now the first thing I wanted to test is if internet access is available to my public instance. So to test that, I'm gonna update my instance. So if it updates, so now it's basically fetching all of this from the internet. That basically means it has internet access. So one more way you can check it is by pinging it. You can ping, let's say google.com, and it's able to fetch info, right? I want to stop it. Done. So it has internet access, guys. So let me just close this and let me connect it via SSH. So to connect it via SSH, I'm going to open my terminal. I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, so hope you guys can see this, but wait, I have not shared my terminal screen. So let me share my terminal screen. Okay, so I've shared my entire screen. I hope you guys can see my terminal screen right now. Let me just check if I could see it so that I would know that you guys can see it as well. No, the entire screen thing isn't working. So let me just do one thing. I'll just stop screen share. I'll just share it once again. Okay, terminal sharing. Okay, I hope you guys can see the terminal now. What's the problem here? Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to troubleshoot this. It isn't sharing the entire screen. I'm sorry for that. Okay, I think I'll just share my Chrome screen. The the terminal is not getting shared. I don't know the problem with it. Share screen, Windows, share. Okay. So there is a question. Okay, let me just check. No. Okay. So I was connecting to this instance, right? So I can connect it to my SSH client, but the screen share with the terminal isn't working. I'm just gonna connect it here. I'm just gonna show it you guys over here as well. So first of all, internet access is available to my instance because I was able to update my instance, right? So again, this is the first thing you'll have to do with any instance you create, update it, and then next thing you can try installing something. So I'm gonna install sudo install unzip. Sorry, very sorry. You'll have to use the package manager, which is apt.get hyphen get or apt just apt. See, the major problem with the browser is it'll be slower than using your terminal. So that's a problem which I didn't want to face. So that's why I was trying to basically use my terminal, but there is some issue. Last time when I did it worked. This time it isn't working. Okay, so now we've connected to the. Let me just try to make it bigger. Okay, it's not. Okay, so anyway, guys, I've connected to it. This is a private, public subnet. Internet is working, so we've successfully created a public subnet. Now coming to the next instance, private subnet. So as I told you, we cannot connect it to directly. So one way we can connect it using SSH. So how through SSH is using the SSH. So this particular tutorial key .pan. So that particular key should be within this particular uh, instance only. Then it will connect. If I just copy and paste it, it will not connect. See, permission denied. But let me try this. Let me try to connect without it, and permission denied because it requires a key. There is a public key within my private instance. So until and unless I connect it through that, it will not work. So the key is in my local PC. So let me once again try. I'll just once again try to connect or share my screen, guys. Just give me 1 second. I'll once again try to share my entire screen. But once I share my entire screen, it's getting stuck. Yes, once I shared my entire screen, it's getting stuck. I'm sorry, there's some issue with the streaming platform. Just give me 1 second. Chrome tab, entire screen. Yeah, I shared my terminal, but again, it's not showing. Okay, I'm not gonna waste you guys time, so I'm just gonna use the browser itself. Okay, so now let's connect to the private subnet, private instance from our browser. So To do that, first of all, I actually need to uh, connect my public instance. So basically, what is that? The private key, right? The private key is in my local PC. mm, tutorial.key file, tutorial.pem, tutorial key.pem. Let me search for it. Tutorial key.pem. Yes, so it's in my local PC, guys. So the first thing I actually have to copy it into this, but I cannot copy it like this. But if it's a different, what is it? If it's putty or anything, we can do it. So to do this, I need FileZilla. So I'm just gonna install FileZilla client pretty quickly. You guys also can learn how to install FileZilla client, but I'm gonna install it for not Windows. I need it for Mac. So I'm just gonna use the free one, not the paid one. So FileZilla is basically, let me just delete it again, cancel it. So FileZilla, guys, it's a client, it's an SMTP client or an FTP client, you can say. It helps you transfer files to other servers. So that's what this particular tool is for. Okay. Okay, I'm opening FileZilla in my PC. You guys are not able to see it apart from this particular window. So that's the problem here. But I've downloaded it over here. You can see, right? I'm downloading it. I'm opening it, and I'm copying. I'm gonna copy it. So just give me 1 second, guys. Let me do all that. So the things you will need in order to copy it to your public instance, right? So you would need your prior public IP. So there would be an option called host. You'll have to put your public IP there. Username. This is an Ubuntu instance, so the username would be Ubuntu. If it's any other instance, the username would be EC2 user. Okay, Ubuntu. The password won't be anything because we are using a key pair, and port number would be 22. So these are the things you'll provide, and then there would be settings option. Yeah, so there would be a setting option where you can go and add the key file, which is the what is this? This p.pem file. Okay, so that's you'll have to go ahead and add it. Guys, please hang on for a couple seconds. Uh, So type default Unix. Sorry for making you guys wait. Just give me 1 second. I'm just trying to copy this. Um, so meanwhile, you guys can go ahead and check out the VPC tutorial. I'm talking about the same things. I was able to show the terminal in that particular session, but I'm not able to share it right now. I'm just gonna try it once again using StreamYard. If not, I'm just gonna go ahead and no, it's still getting stuck. I'm very sorry about it, guys. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share just my window. Okay, let this be. I'll just keep this window for you guys. Um, CD downloads. Where is my key file? The key file is over here. Um, tutorials key. Username is Ubuntu. IP address is 34.201. Okay, one more thing I want to show you guys meanwhile, so that you guys won't be bored when I'm doing this. So I'm just going to connect to my public instance once again, and I'm going to launch a web server, and I'll paste the URL in the chat so that you guys can go ahead and check it out in your browser. Okay, so I'm just gonna install a web browser. Uh, Install Apache 2. So before I install it, if you guys basically, I'll just share this with you guys, right? So try to copy and paste this URL in your browser. So let me do that for you guys also. You can also try. So right now nothing will be shown because there is no web page or website running in my instance. But once I install it, once I install the server, it will be running. So I'm going to install it. Okay, I'm installing it. Please check it once again. So now if I do this, once it's completely installed, so once it's completely installed, it's done. So now if I do it, there will be a web page running. So you guys can just copy this and check it if the web page is running or not. Please tell the use of AWS. I'm new to AWS, don't know about it. So yeah, so basically AWS is called Amazon Web Services. It's basically a cloud computing provider. They provide you cloud services and yeah, so you can basically create infrastructures using it. You don't have to yeah, so you don't have to create your own data center and then buy hardware and set up everything. You can just do the exact same thing in AWS. Yeah, I'm just trying again, still trying to copy my file. Just give me 1 second, guys. So that's why I showed you this part. So you guys just check it out. Okay, so I hope it's copied. I just copied it using my terminal. Let me go back to here. Let me do an ls, and yes. So the PEM file which I wanted is copied, guys. Okay, that is successfully done. And I hope you guys tried copying and pasting the IP address in your browser to see if it's working or not. I hope you guys tried that. If you haven't tried, I'll do one more small modification. So this file is what is showing here, right? Let me just- This file is what's showing here. Let me change it works into updated and refresh it, and you can again see the change. Okay. So I'm just going to open the index.html file and go down. So I want to change it works to updated. So that's what I'm checking. So Apache to Ubuntu default page. Under that, it works. So over here, okay, I'm going to change this into, it's the browser. That's why it's, sorry for that. Not able to connect to the instance. Is my internet a problem? for the issues, guys. I hope you guys are able to see me again now. So I was basically talking about this. I actually created the yeah. So I created a route table, and I associated the private subnet to the route table. So basically, what I did was I created a route table, this route table, and named it ArchNat route. And once I created it, I went to subnet associations, edit subnet association, and I associated the private subnet. Okay. Next thing, I created an NAT gateway, Arch NAT GW, and attached it to the route table's root. Okay. Over here, root. So you can see, right? I've already attached it. So let me remove it first and save changes. Okay. So now I'm within my okay. So now I'm within my public instance, guys. Public EC2 instance, because you can see the key file which I copied over here. Okay, and it has internet access. Let me ping google.com. Okay, so it has internet access. That's why it is able to fetch data. Okay, so now let me connect to my private instance. Okay, so now I'm in my private instance right now, because if I do an ls, there is nothing available. Okay. So right now this particular route table does not have the NAT gateway. So what do you think will happen if I ping google.com? Will internet work or will it not work? So it shouldn't work. So you can see, right, it's not able to access the internet. So let me do one quick thing. Let me go back here, go to edit routes, change this and connect it to the NAT gateway and save changes. So now let me go back here, and now you can see it's able to access the internet, because I just gave the route table, I just gave the private instance access to NAT gateway, which in turn basically converted the IP address of the NAT gateway into a public IP and was able to fetch data from the internet. So this is basically what I wanted to show you guys today. This is basically what I wanted to show, and I hope I showed everything over here. But sorry for the slight inconveniences in between, where the screen wasn't showing completely. Uh, Again, you can still paste this and see this particular website. I hosted it. Yeah, so sorry for those inconveniences, guys. But again, I hope this session was helpful for you. If you have any other questions, you can ask me, or we can end this session. I'm just gonna delete the resources. So while I'm deleting the resources, you can ask me questions if you have. So I'm gonna delete the instances first. Hey Vicky, welcome to the session. You can check out the session once the session ends also. It will be available in our channel. So don't worry about it. So I'm just trying to clean up, because again, so if you're practicing, right, always try to clean up. Okay. So I'm trying to delete it. I don't think it'll directly delete it. Let me check. Yeah, because it won't be able to delete. I'll have to delete the other resources. So let me go to route table. No, let me first delete the internet gateway, which I created, detached from VPC. Okay, understood. Going to route table, deleting the route table. Oh my God. First, I'll have to remove this. Remove, save changes, subnet associations, edit, remove, save associations. Now let me delete the route table. Done. Okay. So next, going to my main route table, subnet associations, edit, remove, save associations, routes, edit, remove, save changes. Now I can delete the internet gateway detached from VPC. Okay. I think the instances are still getting deleted. That's the problem. Delete, it's deleting. Next, subnets, private and public subnet. Delete subnets. Delete VPC. Delete. I just deleted these resources. Let me check once again if they're completely deleted. It's deleting. This network interface is still available. I'm deleting the network interface. Delete. Okay, so the instances got deleted. So the this also got deleted. Done. Your VPC. Let me try once again. Unable to delete. So it's showing it doesn't exist, but here it's still showing up. I don't know why. See, it's still showing up. So there's some glitch. Let it go ahead. I'll just delete it later. So I hope other things you guys understood. If you have any questions, please put down. Let me just check. Okay, so I don't think there are any questions. And again, sorry for the mishaps. If you guys need another session on AWS architecture, because there were some confusions here and I was not able to share my terminal screen. So if you want, we can do another session 2 on AWS architecture. We can try to create another type of architecture. If you need it, please put down in the comment section that you wanted. If you want any other topics, again, please put down in the comment section that you need these topics, right? Okay. So guys, I think that's it for today's session. I hope you guys understood everything, which and I was able to convey all the necessary things. Yes, now I can delete it. Okay, so that's basically it, guys. So I'll just stop sharing my screen. Hey, Meenakshi, you can again go ahead. The session will be available on our channel. You can go ahead and learn it. Uh, so that's it, guys. Pretty much. I just wanted to share you guys the architecture and show you guys basically how to what is that? Just give me one second. Yeah, so how to basically do this. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I wanted to show you how to completely create that architecture. Yeah, so I think we actually successfully did it, even though there were some mishaps in between. So I hope you guys also understood. Uh, so thank you so much. Meet you in another session. If you have any queries, leave it in the comment section. If you want us to provide new videos on certain topics, particular topics, put down in the comment section. We will be making them. So thank you so much. I'm going to end the live. So meet you in another live session. Okay. Thank you guys.